Aum Sairam. Hara Hara Shankara, Jaya Jaya Shankara. Episode 21. Shri Mahaswami, the sage with eyes of light, the diary of a seeker of truth, Dr.Serge Demetrian. Dear devotees, now we shall listen to the second section of part 2 of this divine book under the subtitle The Lotus Pond. Karveti Nagar, April 1971. The heap of orange clothes. One day, Sri Mahaswami went for a walk further away than normal from the hermitage beyond the temple of Venugopala on the western side of the pond and returned towards the end of the afternoon. This time he was followed and surrounded by a dense and excited crowd whose emotions were fast reaching excessive proportions. The people pressed very closely to Sri Mahaswami and without specifically wanting it, they could have harmed him despite the efforts of his assistants to protect him. I was at the outer limit of the crowd when I observed how the agitation stopped in a flash as if disorientated by what to do next. With difficulty, I reached the center of the mass to ascertain what happened. I observed how the assistants and some persons close to the hermitage, some 8 or 10 people, had interlaced themselves with their shoulders and waists in a real defense circle. I could read a determination on their faces that they were ready to protect Sri Mahaswami with the attitude, the god dies but never surrenders. I came up on my toes and searched the space behind them, where normally Swamiji would be standing, but I did not see him. I thought, he is a great yogi, but he could not have flown off like this. I came nearer and asked an assistant, but where is Sri Mahaswami? As he was absorbed in controlling the crowd, he just nodded behind and down with his head. Through the slits in between the bare chests of the defensive circle, I saw a heap of orange clothes like a large flattened ball lying on the ground with a short end of the danda sticking out, which indicated his presence. He was there, huddled up in the dust. I retired quickly in order to give an example to others, who then did the same. Little by little, the group became less dense. Sri Mahaswami stood up, seemingly unruffled, and left slowly towards the lotus pond, followed from afar by some of his besiegers. Later, I was thinking about the attitude of Sri Mahaswami. To enact death always impresses us as it reminds us of the real death. Some animals avoid corpses, while some leave another animal alone when it has remained absolutely still. There are 2 important events in a person's life, birth and death. When death occurs to someone, we find ourselves in a profoundly pensive mood. If one rejoices at the thought of birth, then death creates quietness, for we feel the mystery and limits of our own existence. Sri Mahaswami's manifestation provoked in me a sense of deep awe. His fearless demonstration showed me how to surrender and not be afraid. Karveti Nagar, May 1971. The Hurricane Lamp. This night should not have been special. I planned to sleep on the stairs of the lotus pond and had stretched my mat and the blanket in the middle of the flight of stairs facing the hut where Sri Mahaswami was resting. I had kept a lighted hurricane lamp behind my head on the same step. The lamp would scare away dogs and other animals and also signal my presence to anyone who may come down from the hut to the reservoir on this moonless night. I peacefully fell asleep. Suddenly I woke up. a man stood nearby behind my head. He was on the next step up and was just bending over in order to lift up the hurricane lamp. Having taken it, this person then slowly walked away on the same upper stair right past my body from the head up to the feet. At this point, he brusquely turned left. All the time, from the instant of my abrupt waking, I lay paralyzed, nailed to my mat by a force impossible to oppose and which overpowered me with a luminous insistence. Only when that person, along with his force, had passed beyond my feet and turned away, I came to my senses and understood it was Sri Mahaswami. He strode up the stairs with my lamp in his hand. I jumped up from my resting place and still had the time to prostrate before he entered the hut. Too excited to return to sleep, I passed a portion of the night in walking clockwise around the hermitage, Pradakshina. Finally, tired, I lay down on a step and slept until morning. In the afternoon of the next day, an assistant handed back the lamp without any comment. Karveti Nagar, June 1971. Nocturnal walk behind the Mahaswami. The Chaturmasya has not yet started and Sri Mahaswami could still leave at any moment. The friends of the hermitage, the assistants, the visitors and me, we all tried guessing from his movements what would happen next. It is impossible to anticipate when he will grasp his water vessel and when his danda slightly bent forward. He would start walking towards the nearest road. We would not know in which direction he would head until the first road crossing. On a beautiful afternoon, what we all feared happened. The owner of the hut entered my room where I was resting. He shouted, "Sri Mahaswami has left." "When? Where?" I uttered. "1 hour ago at 4 p.m. towards Pallipattu," says the man, breathing heavily as he had run to inform me. 1 hour, I gauged. He is too far ahead to join him by foot. I made some inquiries and discovered that in another half hour a bus would drive in the direction taken by Sri Mahaswami, which was towards south. Luckily, the vehicle would pass near Gandhi Ashram, the place where I was living. I quickly packed and just managed to catch the bus as it was moving by jumping onto it. I found Sri Mahaswami some 6 kilometers further along at the first important crossroad. His group was resting in a coconut plantation at the side of the road. I prostrated and looked on from a distance as he was quite busy. Several citizens from Karveti Nagar had come on the same bus as myself and were pleading and praying for him to come back to their village. They were opposed by a group of inhabitants from Pallipattu who were trying to shout over the others, inviting him in their own locality, which was only about 2 kilometers away. Sri Mahaswami was used at this sort of display that repeated itself every time he left a locality. He simply replied by showing his noble gestures of appeasement. As he was maintaining silence for several days, he just smiled from time to time or closed his eyes for a few moments. Bus as myself, and were pleading and praying for him to come back to their village. They were opposed by a group of inhabitants from Pallipattu who were trying to shout over the others, inviting him in their own locality, which was only about 2 kilometers away. Sri Mahaswami was used at this sort of display that repeated itself every time he left a locality. He simply replied by showing his noble gestures of appeasement. As he was maintaining silence for several days, he just smiled from time to time or closed his eyes for a few moments. The sun was descending towards the horizon. The assistants who had followed Sri Mahaswami and me were preoccupied, eyeing each other. There were no houses in the vicinity and none were prepared to pass the night in the fields. All of a sudden, Swamiji stood up. We all jumped up at the same time. He went to the crossroad and inquired about the distances to Chittoor, 40 kilometers to Pallipattu, 2 kilometers to Karvetinagar, 6 kilometers. He was thinking deeply while turning towards every direction as if he was mentally trying it. Then slowly but with firm resolve started towards Karvetinagar. The inhabitants from Karvetinagar could not conceal their joy that he will return to their village. Those from Pallipattu were crestfallen, but being good losers, they did not show it. Everybody drew his own conclusions. Some boarded the last bus for Karvetinagar. Some started on foot towards their nearby homes. Around Sri Mahaswami, there remained 5 persons, myself included. Swamiji started walking barefoot at a brisk regular pace on the left side of the tar road. He would neither change his rhythm nor would he stop during the entire march. For me, there is no illusion. 6 kilometers without shoes on a hard road meant I would have swollen feet covered with blisters the next day. I do not hesitate. To follow him in such a small group is an occasion one should not miss. I tighten my dress, check my water reserve, and shove my sandals into the bottom of my bag so as not to be tempted to wear them. I fall in behind him. Soon it becomes evident that this will be no ordinary march. The 4 assistants who generally guard him with jealousy are scattered on the road. They prefer the right side of the road. They hardly look towards Sri Mahaswami. Seeing him continue on the road at a calm and regular pace, they become bolder, and when the night was darker, they would wander off into the gardens that lined the road in search of fruits. I took advantage of these favorable conditions and placed myself exactly behind Swamiji. I did not leave him until the end of the journey. Almost 2 hours alone at night behind Sri Mahaswami. I adjust my stride, which is longer than his, and try to put my feet exactly on his footprints. I do not see them on the tar, but I feel those footmarks. These areas are hotter due to a tangible light. They are slightly noticeable when with due care one's foot hits the spot. I am so near to him that I could touch him with my outstretched arm. However, this is not necessary. There emanates from him a sort of trail made of a fine and luminous matter which envelops me like a cocoon. From time to time, I would notice that I walked like an automaton. Then something more happened. The feeling of I perished. Sri Mahaswami was moving in both places, then in a single place. But does he really walk? Nothing seemed sure to me about it, although the usual movements were there. But this is not any of my concern, as Sri Mahaswami seems to have taken charge of my body, which follows him much as an automaton would tied to him. I understand now that he is leading me, and I forget the body and withdraw into the heart. It started with short periods. Every time I returned to consciousness of the body, I found Swamiji in front of me. I took courage from the fact that I felt led and in total bodily unity with him. The mind, entirely freed of the care for the body, concentrated even more in the heart. There, instead of thoughts, it was replaced by the purifying image of a short flame that became more and more stable. Then the flame was surrounded by a fire radiation, an impalpable light that diffused and spread through the interior of the old body, which now simply felt like a box of transparent wax paper. An inexpressible feeling of undiluted happiness prevailed. The self was what it should be, just itself, without limits. In a definite moment, everything perished, even the impalpable light, even the inexpressible joy. What was still lingering? A screen I, indifferent and deprived of individuality, dissolved without trace. I woke up near Karveti Nagar. I came back rather quickly to the ordinary awareness of the world. How did I sink into the heart? It was, no doubt, due to the stream of purified air in the wake of Sri Mahaswami, which having reached me, then infused me. Or perhaps it was as if two tendrils from the current embraced me by passing behind my back and now held me in tandem with him. I continued to walk at the same distance behind him like a robot. Nobody had come between us. At some 50 meters from the crossing where he had to turn right towards the lotus pond and I needed to turn left towards Gandhi Ashram, I felt that I had to leave him. My heart became heavy, my stride slower. I lost the rhythm. At the crossroad, Swamiji stopped for a moment. It was for me. I walked round in front of him as he was standing still and prostrated. He gently shook his head. Then, followed by his 4 assistants, he headed towards the lotus pond. It must have been about 9 p.m. I went to the Gandhi ashram where I woke up the owner and informed him of the return of Sri Mahaswami. I then prepared myself for the night. I knew that the next day I would be unable to go and see Swamiji because usually after a few kilometers of march on the tar road, my feet are swollen and covered with blisters. This night I had walked 6 kilometers. I went to sleep accepting my destiny. Next morning, after the first usual thought of Sri Mahaswami and the first gaze at his photo, I turned to my feet. For an instant, I did not recognize them, as they did not seem to be mine. They were clean and healthy, as though they did not belong to me. I took them in my hand one by one and touched and examined them. There was no trace of swelling or of a blister. I sat up straight. There was no change. Everything appeared perfectly normal. I had rarely completed my daily morning program of meditation, yoga and bath in such a hurry, so keen was I to reach the hermitage. Once I arrived, I found that the door was closed. Someone informed me that Swamiji had not been seen outside. I went round the hut, as I normally did. Soon afterwards, an assistant appeared. He was one of the 4 who accompanied Sri Mahaswami last night. He approached me and said, "Sri Mahaswami is ill. He will not come out today." Almost unbelievable. Sri Mahaswami was ill simply because of the walk yesterday. I had never heard this before. How is it possible? I wondered. Last night he was in perfect health. "It is true," the attendant replied, "but this morning he has swollen feet and they are covered with blisters. He is now taking rest." After almost 1 hour, the door of his room was opened and I saw him lying on his bed with his head towards west and his feet wrapped up by thick bandages of orange cloth. I knew that one should not prostrate in front of him when he is lying down, so I stayed at a distance trying to meditate in my heart, but with not much success. I left and started to walk round the pond of the lotuses, and after the first and the second complete round, I saw each time at the open door of the hermitage the feet of Sri Mahaswami wrapped with ochre. At the third round, I stood frozen. My eyes turned towards my unscathed feet and then to his dressings, and finally I understood. Out of compassion, on the preceding night, he had taken over my pain. My throat dried up and tears filled my eyes. I greeted him from afar. Then I came slowly nearer and saw he was not sleeping. I stood there for some time, thanking him in my heart. Then I meditated for a long time. When I felt that I should leave, I opened my eyes only to observe how Sri Mahaswami was gazing straight at me. I greeted him once again, their hands up in Anjali, up above my head. He slightly brought up his right hand in Abhaya and gently moved his head. Though he was comparatively quite far, I do believe there was a fine, knowing smile concealed in his short white beard. Devotees, we shall continue to listen to the lotus pond in the coming episode, bowing at the holy feet of the Gurus. Aum Sairam. Hara Hara Shankara. Jaya Jaya Shankara.